Okay, in chapter 2, there's like many experiences going on, both for the human as well as for Khaleesi. Um, she finally found a rucksack that apparently they had washed up on shore. And so she's watching attentively as I'm trying to make me some coffee, because I mean, this is a human thing. And if I'm going to be alert and so I can see hopefully anything that's coming at me, because I'm trying to survive now and make sure nobody's going to try to kill me. Not that it probably would help anyway, because everybody here is stronger than me anyway. So I'm doing all these strange customs, which are very strange to her, but she finds most like stimulating. It's something that the men of her world doesn't do, and so it's another visualization thing for her. But she's even willing to try out some of these human things like the coffee, the sugar, which actually kind of stimulated her with a great smile because it's not something that they would have. They don't have sugar. They probably have some kind of sweetener for her time period of her world, but not anything like what would be coming from my planet. And of course, she realizes that I'm going to be running out of certain things, so she's going to try to do whatever's necessary to make me feel at home because she realizes this is stuff that I have to have, at least from her perception. There was a couple of funny scenes in here. Okay, we humans like to exercise, and you just don't see a knight in armor doing jumping jacks and push-ups. So you have to imagine what she's thinking. Like, what the hell are you doing? I mean, are you okay? Because this is not normal for her to see these things. But she's taking it all in stride. And then you have to feel sorry for this poor human. I mean, we have our habits. If you can't find an ashtray, you flick a cigarette butt somewhere because you're not trying to start a fire. And you have to visualize this scene that this human realizing, oh, shoot, why did I flick that cigarette butt over the railing? So I'm grabbing the railing and I'm looking down, left, right, where'd the thing land? I'm just like in a panic because what if it starts a fire? Here I am, and boy, what the queen would think if I just started a fire and then these two strangers down below look up at me. Not probably because they saw this butt land down by them, but with it being sand, it probably got kicked over, so you don't hear anything more about it. And they look at me, and I'm waving at them like, hi. And then you kind of look at each other, and they're like, hi. And I'm slap my forehead as I walk away. Oh, that was so stupid. I'll never do that again. Because I was so afraid that would not be a good impression on the queen. She finds it very amazing that I have this human thing called a lighter, because obviously, she's the mother of dragons, and not that she smokes, and I'm seriously doubt she's going to have a dragon light a cigarette for her. So, yeah, again, another strange human custom. So this poor human does some stupid things. You got to have a little humor in here, okay? Because, again, you've never had a human on this world. And Khaleesi, in turn, also finds this guy very funny. I mean, you figure what a Targaryen has that they use as humor to smile or laugh in the Targaryen way that they laugh, and it's like just the strangest things ever. Unfortunately, the human also steps into something that gets him in trouble. I mean, after seeing the two moons, like I said, he's in tears. He finally realizes, well, I can't look weak. If I'm going to survive, I got to show my pride. And the old saying, pride is one of the 7 sins. So without thinking, he kind of presents himself over again, which she allows, but in a way that he kind of opens a door he probably should have not opened. If you do this, I will do this. Like, for example, he said, I'll drink the golden waters of the dragon if I have to prove my loyalty to you. I mean, because the human's trying to say, you don't need to kill me or something. Not that she's thinking this, but this is probably what is running through his mind. What he doesn't realize, he's putting himself almost in the same situation as the men of her world. I'm trying to make it where I'm in control, and I'll say, here's the test I want to take. Well, she knows my frailties, okay, and I'm saying because I'm putting myself in the character, which is how I wrote this. And she bears this in the back of her mind. I'm thinking she's not, I mean, she won't come out and admit it, but she's going to almost take advantage of this situation because it will be a way of teaching this human a lesson. If I don't allow the men to be in control, why do you think a puny human is going to come and think he's in control? But I don't catch on to this because I don't have these senses. It's not like psychic or anything, but I'm guessing a Targaryen has like at least twice as many senses as the human, which has sight, sound, taste, smell. Okay, so she's able to sense other things. And she don't bring up right away that I had mentioned this. Okay, so, because again, she's in control. She will decide when she's going to use this to her advantage. She's going to decide when to teach me a lesson. I'm in control. So you take this scene, and she says, because this was one of the tests I said, test me. Take your knife and cut my hand open, and you'll see that my blood is bright red and on fire. But that's because I told her this is the test I want to put her through. And that's why when you listen to the scene, she's about ready to, and looks at me, and it's like, no, time for me to teach him a lesson. So she puts the knife down in a gentle way, not like angry or she's just flinging his arm away, but gently shoves his arm out of the way. No, I choose. It almost suddenly comes to the human's realization, uh-oh, I think I did something wrong, and I'm on an alien world. What did I just do? But he has to go through with it because she could take his life at any time. Not that that's her intention. So that's why she makes him stand butt naked in front of her at her command, because she's never seen a naked human before. She's seen naked men of her world, but here I am, this short alien human, and she likes what she sees, obviously. So it's like the first erotic mild a moment, because everything to her seems to be in the right place. The next part, although she still got her curiosity about him, and she before it gets to the other test, which was the most erotic, she still wanted to learn of his world. She's probably thinking that, well, he probably doesn't realize what he did, but she's not totally going to dismiss it either, because I still have to learn my lesson. So, she still continues wanting to know more about him. Well, the human thinks, okay, cool, I'm off the hook. Maybe she'll forget the fact that I said I'll drink the golden waters. No. Because when you say something to a woman, even a queen, just because you don't mention it right away does not mean it's never going to come up. And unfortunately for this poor human, William, he's about to learn the most radical, erotic lesson of his life. You should have kept your big mouth shut. So, because then and when the whole erotic scene's over, she goes, well, men just don't drink female pee. And I just couldn't, I wanted to know if you're deceiving me or lying to me. So this is why I had to do what I had to do. But she does apologize to him, it wasn't my intent to humiliate you. But she had to make sure that he's not lying to her. But at the same time, even now the human comes to realize slowly, I guess I had this coming. I should have not acted so boldly to her. That was probably not the best way to get off. If you're lost in somebody else's world, or even let's say you're shipwrecked and you're in somebody else's country, you don't want to come off the wrong way, because especially when it comes to a female, because they're going to hold it to you. You won't see it coming. You don't know when it's coming, but they are going to nail you to the wall with this. And you better see it through, because you're the one that opened that door and stepped inside and not chose your words carefully. So this was kind of like a learning experience for the human. And it's like the most erotic sex scene. They're not really having sex, but you have to kind of almost visualize when you listen to it what's going on. So he's kind of learned his lesson, and he don't make that mistake again, but there's still like a third or test or so. However, as usual, poor dumb human, he thinking, oh great, I go jogging in my world. This will be the first time I get to run in my world, right? How many people have actually seen knights in armor go jogging along the beach? It's just something you don't do. But for this human, it's like the coolest thing ever. I've never ran along the beach before, and here's all these people that were freed, that adore her, and they're finding this strange behavior by this guy running in shorts that, maybe only come 2 inches below the crotch area. So we're talking about short shorts, because it's nice, and it's a humid atmosphere, okay? It's thin, the gravity's heavy, But for what little breeze there is, it feels good, because it's the human atmosphere he's got to try to get used to as well. And so he's doing all these like stretches and exercises on the beach. He already let her know, say, hey, don't worry, I'm not running off, more or less. And she comes out there, and you can imagine the look on her face. Okay, to her, you're running like almost naked, and it's not the thing that people do in such a way. That's an appropriate way to be doing in her world. So that's when it leads up to that part where she's like, oh, and remember when you said you were going to drink cold waters? Uh-oh, you're in trouble now. Well, when all that's done, he ends up having to take a bath again. And so he also comes to realize, oh, great, I did something else stupid again, because this is her world. So she confiscates his underwear, his socks, his shorts, and very sternly tells him, you're never going to run like this again outside. You want to exercise? You're going to do it here in the palace, but not out there. What he doesn't realize, she's also kind of like looking out for his best interests. Because now that it's day 2, he doesn't see it, but she's already decided, okay, of all the gold and silver and the jewels that I have in my kingdom, you're unusual. You're a new treasure, and I intend to keep you. But she doesn't come out and say it yet, because she doesn't want to scare him off. But she's already made up his mind about him. He's a keeper, because he's not like anything that she's ever had in her world before for any man that serves her. Even her own husband that she was once married to never acted in such strange ways. And granted, he had no shirt on, but he never went jogging along the beach, doo-doo-doo-doo. I mean, he just didn't act like that. So he's learning as he makes mistakes that there's certain things you just don't do. And he's learning the hard way. The poor guy, you have to really feel sorry for him. The things he gets himself into, it just will make you laugh. Okay? So it's a good chapter for breaking the language barrier. Even though it's already been broken, that's the second chapter, and it's quite lengthy. And again, I designed my own stage props that kind of goes with it, so it kind of gives you a visualization of what would be used to portray this. So I actually, when I would listen to it over and over again, correcting some mistakes, I know that some of the sound sounds like it's tunneled, and some of the sound is clear. Unfortunately, I don't have the equipment Hollywood does, so I'm sure they could like clean it up. I mean, and you have my permission to do so. If I had the equipment the Hollywood has, I would be able to make it a lot better. So I hope that you take that consideration and give me at least fair judgment on this. Because like I said, even if it's not approved, I'll find somebody else that would be willing to maybe give me a shot. But in any case, I apologize for the sound effects. You know, yeah, it's I'm limited in being on limited means. I can only use what I have on hand. So that's just the way it is when for a great author who writes a book. You might not have the best parchment paper, but you can only use what you got before you go take a book in to have it published. So it's the same with what I've got. So this was a very you'll find this very very riveting. I mean, I'd be surprised if some of the actors or actresses of the Game of Thrones don't end up having sore ribs from this. Hopefully they don't hate me for that. But you got to consider this poor human. I mean, the things he get himself into, and somehow miraculously he gets out of it because she's not wanting to harm him, because all these weird dumb things he does she finds fascinating. And she's like, the more he does, not that he's trying to humiliate in representation of the human race, but she's learning a lot from these things he does. And she's also trying to get him to gradually change to the things that they do, because she already knows he's not going to go back. He already knows he's not going to go back. And so, her next goal now is, if I can get him to adjust to our ways, and I groom him to our customs, I might want to keep this guy around, because there's something stirring in me that now I'm attracted to this guy. Granted, he's not as strong as the men that want me, but this human isn't trying to pursue me. He's not trying to come on to me and anything. And that in itself is an attraction for her, because I'm not trying to force myself with flowers or some stupid thing like that. My thing is about survival. I got to find a way to keep my sanity because there is no other human. I mean, what am I supposed to do? I got nobody of my kind there. So I am totally alien to this world. And so she sees a lot of these things in me, and it just keeps drawing her closer to me. And it's to the point where there's starting to build a love affair. But she's not ready to reveal this yet because the human also starting to have an attraction to her. And considering her position and the fact that he's alien, he doesn't want to make it to where he offends her and oops, well, now you not only got to her world, but now you're dead. So he has to play it safe too. So it's quite the romance that's starting to develop now. Now, in this one, this is like the I believe this is like chapter 3. Okay, he, okay, it doesn't go right to a sex scene as far as them actually having sex together because he, after going through the first test where she just pretty much, she's in control and she just wants to see what a naked human body looks like. Well, she kind of thinks that maybe he's reacting to a bad way because he's making these weird sounds in his sleep. And what she doesn't realize is that he's reflecting on all the things that transpired prior to his getting here. Him being the only human, the fact his people are dying from this passing Nibiru and experience. And so he suddenly sits up and shouts no because, he doesn't realize he's actually not on Earth. He's here in her world. And she kind of seemed a little concerned about this. And he said, no, it wasn't because of that. And so seeing that his forehead is sweaty and everything, her Targaryen senses tells her, okay, this human dreams, because I don't know if the Targaryens dream or anything like that, but she finds this to be very interesting. But she realizes that it was not a pleasant dream. And so not in a sexual way, because this shows where, it's not about having sex with them. She thinks, okay, you're here on this world and you can't get back, so I'm going to take care of you. So in a loving, like, comforting way, she, even though she has the comfort of her own bed, she lowers herself from her position, being like in a queenly manner, and crawls into the designated area of where this human's at and gets into bed with him. And it's not about sex. It's about, making him feel, hey, you're safe now. You're my treasure, even though I haven't told you this yet. I'm not letting anything happen to you. So, it comforts the human because he feels like he's safe in her arms. It's this undescribable feeling he gets. And at the same time, he doesn't realize that because of the extra senses she has, I mean, whether he has already told her about his heraldry of legends of old up to Camelot and King Arthur because, he comes from a Scottish clan and all that, or not, one of her senses tells her, hey, okay, there's a sleeping dragon here. She could sense things that normal humans would not normally perceive. You can't just look at somebody thinking, oh, yeah, they're Scottish or something. But she's able to detect this. And, well, it somehow, by her kind of whispering this to him, even though he's kind of half awake, and after going through a traumatic nightmare, which is what a human would call it, she's going to comfort him, and he now has a different dream. But he doesn't tell her at first because he keeps playing it over. He keeps seeing the visions of a big red dragon with 3 other different colored dragons above, and here's this gray dragon coming out of the water. Well, eventually you'll learn where she'll tell him, and others of her palace that symbolism is everything. Okay, I mean, this is based what the world's based on. And so the symbolism here is that as he's having these dreams or the visions keep going through his head, not that she triggered something in him, because it's been said, anyone who has such a heraldry that goes to King Arthur would probably have connection to the Stonehenge, for example. The big red dragon, with the exception of the 3 that are above, in this vision of his becomes this Khaleesi. And the gray dragon come out of the water obviously becomes this human who washed upon their shores. So you see, there is the connection. Symbolism is everything in their world. I mean, she sees a red comet going through the sky. Hey, I'm going to be a ruler. You know, that's just the way it happened in through the other series. Um, so he thinks then, well, maybe because I didn't do a very good job when I tried to impress upon her, if I have to prove my loyalty, I'll drink the golden waters of a dragon. He wasn't trying to say, hey, yeah, I'll drink your pee, because he probably wasn't thinking that way. But it's how it came across to her, and she was going to hold him to this, and therefore he learned his lesson. Be careful what you say. Choose your words carefully, because it might bite you in the end. And it did, and of course he learned from that. It never comes up again throughout the rest of the story. So now he's approaching it from a different perspective, legend, symbolism, because he's kind of starting to get a little bit more feel for the way they do things. They're gods that, even though he would never submit himself to worshiping a statue, because he is like a Christian type guy, although he's not ready to present this to her yet, and probably won't until well after they're married. But so we're seeing all these statues of gods and what have you, and they believe that, gods could have sent him or something. The symbolism here, he's going to approach it now from her perspective. I had this dream and this is what I saw, and so it gets her thinking, well, maybe he's the chosen one. So now he could be stepping into something that, could not be good, because she's now starting to get a little bit like, oh, so what are you trying to tell me now? But it turns out for the better this time, and he feels he has to prove himself. He knows it's dangerous, because you can imagine walking on hot coals. It won't be the same fire she walked through, because the flames were probably like, 3-4 feet high, and she didn't really walk. Is this the fact that she knelt by her husband king, and the whole thing that he was laying on burned up, but it didn't kill her. The eggs obviously were gone, and now here's these dragons. She's naked. She survives, so fire can't harm her. So in a symbolic gesture, it was like she did walk through fire. Well, he actually, from an ancient culture and time, from Earth, has to walk at least 15 feet on burning hot coals, okay? And he knows this is going to be dangerous. One screw up, you're going to catch yourself on fire. She'll take this as symbolism. Oh, you lied to me, and well, that's the end of you. But she has this unspoken power. You can't see it, but it's like she gives off a vibe, which is like an invisible power that keeps him from being burned, but knowing the fact from what he's told her that the feet have symbolism. If he could take the pain in his feet, does that mean he's trying to say he'll lay his life down for me? So she's kind of finding an attraction to this now. I mean, she's even gone so far to ask how he has sex with a human female and has babies with him. I mean, you can imagine for the poor human guy trying to explain this, because it's not something that we humans would discuss with any female. It's for us kind of a taboo thing. I mean, we're already supposed to know this when we grow up. So that's why he moves from one spot on the terrace to another, because it's like an uncomfortable moment for him. How do you tell a woman, yeah, I'm going to stick my penis in you and you're going to get sperm from me and you get pregnant? It's just something you don't talk about with other human females in his world, and it's a modest thing. But he realizes also he's not going to ever go back to world, so he's struggling to tell her this, and she's enjoying every moment of this because she knows it's an uncomfortable situation. But at the same time, she's learning about mating rituals, the things they do, and she's finding everything so stimulating that it's almost like a turn-on for her, if you can imagine what would turn on a Targaryen. Okay, and it's not like she wants to jump into bed with him, but she's keeping certain things he tells her in the back of the mind. And then once again, unless you listen to the scene really carefully that I'm as I read it, and visualize the scenes, again, she lets the human think that he's in control, because maybe she senses this, although she don't come out and say it because that's what the men of her world think. But in actuality, she's still in control of the situation. She don't act upon certain things until she picks the right time to make the impact. So the human forgets that they did actually make love after he had burned sore feet. And of course, human females of this planet Earth world might think that made his human man's feet ugly because of the scars. Targaryens, on the other hand, would take somebody's burned feet and look at them as very beautiful because, hey, this man's going to walk through coals of fire for me. I really find that attractive. Maybe you are the chosen one. No man, who's going to walk through coals of fire just to win a woman's heart? Seriously? It's just something that wouldn't really happen. So that's another attraction for her. And so he thinks that, okay, well, maybe this was just a dream because it's not, it was intentionally made to sound like, oh, he's having his first time lovemaking experience after they just took a bath together. Well, it wasn't also the first time they took a bath together. But see, it's intentionally made that way because he's probably thinking, maybe his dream was so real that it looked like he was making love to her and taking a bath with her, but it didn't really happen. So it was intentionally written this way, but in actuality it was twice, because eventually you're going to hear her give it away when she confides in her handmaiden saying, I felt it was necessary to mark him twice. Well, now think about it. If it was the first time, how did she mark him the second time? Well, it only makes sense because he walked the coals of fire, they made love, his feet's got to heal, and she marked him the first time. Well, when it gets to after she's asked about the procreation question, she marks him again because she wants these marks to stay. She's decided, that's it, I've made up my mind. You're going to be my mate. I want to have babies with you, but I don't want to scare you off. That might be rushing things a little bit. So, and I want to experiment and see what would happen if you and I had a baby together. I'm Targaryen, you're human. You have your frailties, but I find you very sexually attractive for a puny human, and I know you find me to be very sexually attractive, however it is a Targaryen thing. So you kind of have to look at the situation that's coming together now. She's still in control no matter what is said or what is done. You might think there's no control there, but I guarantee you, if you've watched all the series, 1 through 5 or 6, and I hear number 7 is coming out, I have not seen, and this is based on my own honest opinion, I have not seen where she's not in control. There was a time, if you refer back to her most trusted advisor, that she was in control, but that was a betrayal. There's a difference between being in control and then somebody betraying you. Regarding the fact that she had a kid with her first husband, King, that was confidential information. You're supposed to be able to keep your mouth shut if the queen tells you something and says, hey, this is in confidence. You don't just blab things out. It's just like in the U.S. government. If you're trusted with top secret information, you better keep your mouth shut or it's going to bite you in the end. And so apparently he pretty much had no choice because she's got these senses just like he does because they're both from the same planet. And he can't lie about it, so he had to be honest, and it was his own undoing. So with that as an example, the confidentiality of things and trying to be discreet, and she knows that the human's struggling to be discreet because his way and his actions, it finally gets to the point where now the handmaiden plays a part in this sometimes because she's now picking up on certain things. And so when they confide in each other, which will come up later, they both get to laugh about it, and they're thinking like, wow, okay, have we got a weird one here? What's the deal? Why is it some weird being from a smaller world than our own that has way too many kingdoms? We only got 7 coming to our planet. I mean, it was this like space litter or something. I don't know what they're thinking, but it's starting to develop now in anticipation where the person watching this movie can see that things are shaping up, and it's to the point where now he's already proven his loyalty by walking the coals of fire. But when it gets to the point, and it was coming up, where he's going to Um, because he's doing like service work, and of course you don't do that in the palace. And so again, more strange human custom that Khaleesi finds very funny and amusing. And it's like, oh no, no, I'm going to give you something to do because this is not what we do here. So she's now like treating him like, probably not intentionally, you're mine. You're going to do what I tell you to do. Oh, and by the way, since I really love the way you do things, here's an allowance. Now, it's not like she's paying for the sex or anything. I mean, it could be perceived that way, but no, she's given an allowance. This way, he's not in the way of people who are trying to do their servants' work. She realizes that with strange devices, and he's told her just briefly about movie theaters and stuff. I mean, he's from a world that's probably got higher advancements than hers. So she's got to find something to keep this human busy so that he's pleased, keeps his mind off the tragedy that he's never going back home, and he gives him something to do. What she doesn't realize, although she kind of senses something, because again, there's an attraction there. Okay, and so after she allows him to think that it only happened once, it actually happened twice. They made love. He now wants to propose marriage to her in this human tradition, which she finds very stimulating. Okay, but he doesn't feel in his human frailties confident, even after he's um, proposed marriage to her. He thinks he's got to prove himself again, and she's already convinced that he's already proved himself to her. But you got to think like a human, okay? Because the Targaryens and other people are perfect people, almost like that of a Vulcan or Spock. You've already proven yourself, but this human thinks, well, maybe she might change her mind. Okay, so he's going to try to take on a solid warrior. Now, this does not go well with her. In fact, she doesn't find that amusing. But that's where he has to take swordsmanship, because there's also certain etiquettes of royalty. I mean, anybody who's of a palace would probably know what that would be like. You got certain manners that people in a palace would do that ordinary people like myself wouldn't do in our house. There's just certain things you do from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go bed at night. And this is an everyday thing. So he has to go learn the swordsmanship. Otherwise, he's not going to look very dignified going down the aisle, next to this queen. But he's still thinking, I haven't heard from her say, you have proven yourself to me. And Targaryen female, especially a queen's not just going to come out and say that. He expects this, and I'm thinking she senses this, but she's not going to come out and say that because that's not their way. So he's thinking, I got to do something else. So now he's going to take his life in his hands after doing his training, and I'll come up on this a little bit. I don't want to ruin it for you. And so now he's got to do something else. So this is quite the interesting third chapter of exploring other worlds, customs, and practices.